In a world where nonprofits face perils few mortals can comprehend, and love of humanity shines like a beacon in a storm, where board meetings can bring hurricane-force winds or soothe like a springtime rain, annual budgets howl like wolves in the night, one place stands tall, fighting for all the nonprofits, one organization, one mission, one name, whispered like a promise in the wind. The North Carolina Center for Nonprofits.
Okay, so people working for nonprofits aren't usually movie stars, and we don't get all dressed up for the Academy Awards. But we do know plenty about drama and conflict, and how hard it is to fulfill the heroic mission. I'm Todd Newman, board chair of the North Carolina Center for Nonprofits. From my years of experience, I can tell you one thing for certain. For every nonprofit working to make a community healthier, safer, more culturally vibrant, or more responsive to people's needs and hopes, there is always something making this harder to do. These issues might not boost your adrenaline like an action movie, but they absolutely affect and challenge the action of nonprofits each and every day. They make life harder for all of you dedicated to making life better. And that, quite simply, is why there's a North Carolina Center for Nonprofits. We're here to enrich North Carolina's communities and North Carolina's economy through a strong nonprofit sector and a strong nonprofit voice.
Jane Kendall, founder and president of the North Carolina Center for Nonprofits. When I became executive director of a national nonprofit in education, I struggled with all the issues that Todd mentioned. I knew education, but all of a sudden I had to raise money and manage a board of directors, and I had no place to turn for good information, not even on the laws that we had to follow. I loved our mission, but after a few years, I was really drowning. And I wondered how other nonprofit CEOs were able to swim in this sea. So I applied to be a Kellogg Foundation National Leadership Fellow and got the opportunity to talk with dozens of nonprofit leaders in the United States and abroad, from leaders of tiny shelters to large universities. And I was surprised how common their stories were, how alone they felt, how they struggled with burnout, and how they needed more professional support. Their stories were so similar and so compelling that I felt I had to do something. So after a lot of thought and a big gulp, I left my job, and with a small board, we launched the North Carolina Center for Nonprofits. We set up a concept group of people from all kinds of nonprofits all across the state, and we held 20 town meetings from Spruce Pine to Wilmington. We did a statewide survey, and I interviewed hundreds of board and staff members to hear their stories. Altogether, more than 2,000 people from all 100 counties participated. And we sought all this grassroots input because we knew that for the center to work, that nonprofits themselves had to own it and decide what it would do.
I've been in the nonprofit sector myself about 20 years. I work with older adults with limited incomes. If somebody's working on an environmental issue, we may think, well, our issues aren't very similar, but what we deal with, boards of directors, committees, financial reporting, they're all the same. And so we have a lot in common with people we may not necessarily know, and the Center for Nonprofits brings us together and keeps us up to date, and quite frankly, gives us a voice together in North Carolina. It's a privilege to do our work. And we need to be stewards of the gifts that we're giving, the contributions that we're given, and the best way in my mind to be a good steward of that money is to make sure that we're following all laws, best practices, trends, and one way to keep up with that is through the Center for Nonprofits.
The center serves as that place where we can have a collective voice in advocating for change in policy and investment strategy. Without that center, it would be not as easy for us to launch, if you will, statewide campaigns.
Nonprofits provide 450,000 jobs in North Carolina. That's about the same as the entire manufacturing industry and about the same as the whole retail trade industry. These nonprofit workers pay taxes and they buy consumer goods, cars, houses, food, so they really contribute to the economy too. And nonprofits themselves spend $35 billion a year that goes straight back into North Carolina's economy.
Any executive director of a nonprofit, when they're asked, what is one of their challenges, it's always building a better board. The most important thing is to have a board member that really is going to take the time and work with your organization, be willing to take the time to work with your organization, both in time as well as giving of resources and helping to raise resources. The North Carolina Center, through a lot of their programs, has worked with them on the importance of trying to find committed, passionate board members, and that's what it's really all about.
I look at relationships from the perspective of they are the foundation. And I think if anybody looks back to see what's going to carry them forward, it really is a relationship that you have. That could be with your family, with your friends, with your banks, with your cohort of colleagues. And I think the center has really allowed me to be in a space where I can build valuable relationships because they truly do carry you through times of uncertainty. Being in that space really does help me to move forward, to be encouraged, and to be inspired as I continue down this next path.
The nonprofit and the for-profit business world is getting more and more complicated, more and more laws and regulations. Keeping up on them is a tough job. So I would highly recommend, if you want to keep up in the nonprofit sector, that you have somebody you can make that phone call to.
The Winston-Salem Foundation believes in the work of the center because they have a staff that's dedicated to this work. They have a powerful network of nonprofits and resources for nonprofits. And those relationships that the center have fostered over the last 2 decades, I think are very powerful, not only in Winston-Salem, Forsyth County, but across the state. And it's one of the reasons that we want to continue making an annual investment in the work of the center.
With 20 years experience and 1,650 members serving 100 counties, the center has a long track record of tangible results. $4.3 million saved in just one of 40 programs to help nonprofits cut costs. 75,000 staff and board leaders trained. 110,000 nonprofit leaders receiving individual assistance. More than 20 changes in the law to help nonprofits serve people better. But probably the most impressive figures we can share with you are these. 70% of our members have strengthened their organizations using what they learned from the center, and 96% would recommend the center to other nonprofits. Thank you for watching our movie about the North Carolina Center for Nonprofits. We hope you now want to learn more and maybe even decide to join the show.